On this episode of Survive and Thrive 8791, from the Buck and Honey's remote studios, I'm joined by Dee Dee Crowley, a liver transplant recipient, devoted wife, and mother of two. Crowley's story taught her the power of self-advocacy, the importance of leaning on family, friends, and a community, and what truly matters in life. Her inspirational story is a reminder that you don't have to face life's challenges alone. You won't want to miss this episode of Survive and Thrive 8791. Here we go. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. What is up? Wherever you are, whatever you are doing, I hope you're having a great day. Welcome to another episode of Survive and Thrive 8791. I'm your host, Coach Decora. We are in the Buck and Honey's remote studios on the east side of our great capital city of Madison, Wisconsin. You can follow the podcast on Spotify, Apple Music, iHeartRadio, and YouTube at Survive and Thrive 8791. You can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at TDecora 8791, as well as hitting me up on Facebook at Tim Decora. I'm in it for the followers, so get on board. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button or like button wherever you listen to the show. Leave me a comment if you liked what you heard. If there's a topic or you know a guest who would love to tell their story, email me at tdecora@gmail.com. Glad you could join us today. Our mission is to share stories and conversations that make you cry, laugh, and think, stimulating emotions, creating laughter, and inspiring the mind. A new episode will air on Monday and Thursday morning featuring a wide range of guests. The podcast will touch on many subjects such as grief, loss of a loved one, recovery, professional setback, divorce, success despite challenges, etc. Our guests will share how they learn to survive and thrive. We are going to get into the episode here and introduce our guest very shortly. But according to the internet, and the internet is always right.
Right on.
Right on. Right on, Dee Dee. In 2022, a record 9,527 liver transplants, adult and pediatric, were performed in the United States, inclusive of adult, pediatric transplant, retransplant, and multi-organ recipients, which is about 50% increase since 2012. I hope that sounded good because it didn't sound good coming out of my mouth. But anyway, the University of Wisconsin, UW-Medicine, performs approximately 80 liver transplants each year. And that's what brings us our guest today. Dee Dee Crowley had a liver transplant in 2022. And we're just going to talk through a few things before we get to that. It's a fascinating story, and it had me definitely fascinated. But today, I welcome Dee Dee Crowley to the Buck and Honey's remote studios. Born and raised in Manitowoc, Wisconsin, Dee Dee is a proud alum of Roncalli High School and a Jet. They're the Roncalli Jets. After high school, she would take her talents to the University of Wisconsin-Madison, where she would graduate with a degree in communications and public address. She has been employed throughout the Madison area since graduating from the UW, working primarily in IT. Crowley has worked for A&E Business Solutions, CUNA Mutual, Dean Health, and Alliant Energy. Those are some big names in the area. I'm so glad you could join us today. Dee Dee Crowley, what is up?
Hey, thanks for having me, by the way.
Oh, yeah. Another person from the old neighborhood for me, as in Wanakee. I live in Madison now, but you're a Wanakee person. But we talked off air a little bit. Manitowoc. When I think of Manitowoc, I always think of the ships. How did you spend your time in the deep freeze that we were in the other day?
Well, I did not leave the house. It was too cold. My dog wouldn't even leave the house. So I sat in my jammy pants and my bunny slippers, and I watched movies and hung out with my son, who's been home too, because finals this week, and then there was a no high school.
Yes.
There were no classes the other day. Period.
No school Tuesday. It used to be when I was growing up, and I'm sure you probably experienced a little bit of both, but I know growing up, we always seem to have snow days, but more in the last probably 10, 12 years, we've probably had more cold days than we've had snow days.
Definitely.
Manitowoc, probably with that lake effect, you probably had more snow days than cold days.
We had a lot of snow in Manitowoc. I mean, I remember we had a narrow driveway, and it would be like 4 feet deep. My dad would be going through with the snow plow, and there was a lot of snow up there. Yeah.
Yeah, like that old saying, you walk to school knee-deep snow both ways, uphill both ways.
Barefoot.
I love it, yes. We're going to go to just a couple of things here first. So Kenzie, your daughter, and you're going to talk about her a little bit more once we get to, you and your family, but she was back home from UW Stevens Point, but she's back now. So
yes,
she was off
she
for a
went
little
back
bit.
Saturday. Yep.
Saturday. And I know we talked a little bit about it, that first year that they go away, you want them back and you don't care how long they're there. But then the second and the third year, and you'll find this out, that you're asking them those questions. All right, you're going back when? And you kind of want them to get to go, but and you get your house kind of back a little bit too.
Yeah. No comment on that.
No comment. Okay, good. That's a political PC way to go. You're starting a new job.
I am starting a new job in February, actually.
That is a good month. That's one of the best months of the year.
I think so too.
It's when my birthday is.
So is mine.
The listeners, yeah, go ahead and send
your gifts.
Send your gifts. Cleaning closets. That's what you're doing now while you're waiting to start your new job. How's cleaning closets going?
It's going. I was cleaning my clothes closet today. That was something. But, I'm taking my time. I've been off since mid-November, so looking for a job. So that was a pretty full-time job until I found a job. Now here I am finding myself getting organized before I go back to work.
What I've heard was when you clean your closets and you get rid of clothes, that's a good thing. But you got to replace those clothes, right? So you might as well. No? Oh,
No, I'm not going to.
Oh, that's going to save you and your husband a lot of money.
Yeah. I mean, I do need to get some new clothes for work because I have to go into the office a few days a week. But, and I don't have any because I've been home since COVID and I don't really have any business type clothes. But I am not replacing. I'm just throwing out stuff that I haven't worn.
Decluttering so that, I know we talked about this off air too, but there's a friend of mine from episode 25, somewhere in there, organizing sensation, Kelsey Townsend, loves to help declutter. So if you need to get in touch with her, I can get you Kelsey's number,
good.
but she's in, and she'll come over and do it for free and maybe make some cookies for her or something. But yeah, that's her business, cleaning closets for free. We're going to get going with our sponsor, Buck and Honey's Restaurants, our place that people can escape to. For me, it's a great escape from cooking supper. I'm the supper cooker usually, with great food and drink, menu, 5-star customer service, and a welcoming and vibrant atmosphere. People keep coming back with locations in Sun Prairie, Monona, Wanakee, Mount Horeb. Most communities in the Dane County area can get to a Buck and Honey's within 10 to 15 minutes. Drum roll. Have you been to Buck and Honey's before?
Why, yes, I have. I think I've been to everyone except Mount Horeb.
Oh, okay. We just hit Mount Horeb it was a couple summers ago. And what is I know you have, if you've got a little extra dough in your pocket, you're going to go with the
scallops and mushroom risotto is the best. I love it, but it is a special occasion thing.
Special occasion thing. It doesn't matter, I don't think, where you go when you order the scallops. They're going to be a little bit up there.
Always.
Unless you have your own little scallop store. Otherwise, if you're pinching pennies a little bit and you want to save some, you're going to go with the pizza, right?
The pizza. I do love the Bomber Special, which you said you love as well.
Yes.
And I do like their Thai chicken pizza too.
Thai chicken pizza. And yes, the Bomber Special. And we talked about owner Tom Anderson's dad owned a restaurant in the Dells, and I've been eating Bomber Special. And Bomber was Tom's dad's nickname. I've been eating that since the mid-'80s. So not sure if you were even born in the 80s.
Oh, I was. Yes, I was.
I know.
Thank you.
Well, we're going to get started with the kind of the meat and potatoes. Got me thinking here a little bit, meat and potatoes of the podcast. So on the podcast, our guests will follow the recovery, or we follow the recovery format for sharing the story. And what is that? That is what the format is. What was it like? So we'll talk about that. What happened? We'll talk about that, and what it's like now. So we'll cover what was it like and what happened in segment 1, and what is it like now, and then your suggestions for thriving in segment 2. Does that sound good? Good format?
That sounds great.
Okay. All right, segment 1. You were born and raised in Manitowoc, Wisconsin. What was it like growing up on Lake Michigan? I mean, I got my master's from Concordia, which is in Mequon, and it's right on the lake, and they've got some phenomenal views. And that's what I picture where you grew up. So go ahead and hit that.
Sure. Well, first of all, I don't think you realize how beautiful it is when you live there every day until you leave, like I did, right? It's a beautiful little town right on the lake. We grew up, you could see we were up the hill from the lake, but you could see it from our front room. You know, you could just walk out of my bedroom and you could see the lake from there.
Oh,
So
boy.
yeah, it's a great town. It was a great upbringing. Not a place that I wanted to stay after college. Just the direction I wanted to go was not really going to work for Manitowoc, right? Like, because there's a lot of great careers there, but just not what I was looking to do at the time. So I really loved Madison and I wanted to stay here. So I didn't.
Yeah. So we're going to go back. That gives me that when you wake up and you say I can see myself stretching in the morning and looking out, and man, that would be a great view. And you could probably not appreciate it. And like you said, until you leave, and then you come back. And I know I appreciate it the few times I've seen it, and it's amazing every time. Tell us about your family, parents, siblings.
Sure. So my parents, they were nicknamed Gramps and Cookie. My maiden name is Daly.
Gramps and Cookie Daly.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. And they were really fun, social people. They're both deceased now. And my dad was just a big organizer. He loved sports. He was a golfer. He was...
Clean closets.
No, he did not clean closets. He did not clean closets. And would organize baseball or softball tournaments. And he was just a very social guy in the Manitowoc scene, in the sports scene.
Gramps Daly.
Yeah,
Okay.
Gramps Daly, yep.
And then Cookie.
Cookie was my mom, and she was a hoot. She was very social and fun.
I think that comes with the nickname Cookie.
Yeah, I think so too. She was just, they had a lot of friends. They had a lot of fun. They enjoyed to go on little bus trips with their friends. And my dad died quite a bit earlier than my mom. My dad's been gone for 2003, so almost 22 years were going on, and my mom has been gone almost 9. So there was a big gap there. But she had a lot of friends and did well after he passed, and they just they really lived life. I mean, it was a simple life, right?
And then you have some siblings that you lean on now.
I do. I have 3 older siblings. My sister Debbie still lives in Manitowoc, and she is a retired high school principal and assistant principal.
Wow.
Yeah.
At Roncalli?
Nope, she was assistant principal at Lincoln when she retired, but she also was Mishicot High School principal for many years.
Yes, I recognize both of those names.
My brother Dan left right after high school and went to college in Eau Claire, and he is currently living in Florida and Minnesota, and he's got some kids. His family's up in Minnesota for the most part. There's one of his sons just moved to Kansas City, but don't see him a whole lot because now he's in Florida at least half the year.
If I were you, I'd find some way to go and see him.
I try.
Other than right now, they've got some snow. I don't know if they got snow, but and then you got one more sibling?
Yeah, I got my sister Dawn is 3 years older than me, and she is a retired teacher, just retired 2 years ago. She taught 2nd grade for 32 years, and she also lives in Manitowoc.
Okay. Soft spot for those teachers. I know, so.
I tell you what, I think my dad was disappointed I didn't become a teacher, and I just said, Dad, the end result would not be good if I was a teacher. I'm not meant to be a teacher, and they were. So hats off to them and to you and to all the teachers because not everybody can do it. Yeah,
no, it's hard work, but in the end, it's fun, and working with both of your kids. You got some great kids, and I think that apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Great parents, great grandparents, and just some good people, and your kids are exactly the same. Wait, what kinds of extracurricular activities were you involved in? Because you are a little bit taller than average.
Yeah, I'm 6 feet. I was closer to 6'1" in my younger day, but
we're all shrinking.
Yeah, but that was pretty tall back then because I'm no spring chicken.
I always say that's like 6'8" or 6'9". My wife is 6'1", and that's like 6'8" or 6'9".
I think I played basketball and I played volleyball, but I do think I was one of the tallest in the conference back then. Right? So.
Okay, extracurricular. After high school, you would take your talents to the University of Wisconsin-Madison, and you would earn that degree in communications and public address. What did you want to do with that kind of degree? Because when you sent that stuff to me, I understand the communications, but the public
Yeah.
address, maybe can you talk about that first?
Sure. I mean, it just really taught you public speaking and debating and things like that, right? So, I mean, I never really planned to go into that field, but it was just it was more general Bachelor of Arts degree, and I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do, so that's the path I took.
Well, if you hit a home run like I think you are going to do with your story today, you might have a use that public address
Maybe.
degree. So you arrive in Madison in 1988 and have stayed ever since. The most obvious is that you got a job right away. When we talked about some of those other reasons, did anything else pop into your head about, I mean, you just talked about it's Madison. There's
Yeah.
lots of
Yeah.
things. Can you hit on a couple of things?
Sure. Well, Madison is beautiful. I mean, all the lakes, there's just so much to do. And, it was tough when I decided to stay. I just felt like there'd be more opportunity because I had such a general degree to find something that, could become fruitful eventually. So all my friends left. All my friends that I went to college with, except one, left. And so I just rebuilt. I got a job. I made a bunch of friends. And I just really loved the bigger city. Manitowoc was a great place to grow up, but I really enjoyed the Madison vibe. And I always stayed. So,
Yeah, well, and we're glad you stayed.
yeah.
Yeah, like I said,
I
you
did.
brought two really good parents to our community, Wanakee, and two great kids. Yes. As you mentioned earlier, or as we mentioned, you have been in IT, and that's my memory, and the gears are slipping a little bit. IT, what can you tell me what that is again?
Sure, it's information technology.
Information technology.
Yeah.
I always think of IT as industrial technology from my school background,
Sure,
but
sure.
okay. You're settled in with a family, a great husband, and two awesome kiddos. We're going to kind of fast forward because you got married. Well, you got married in 2001, and then of course you have your kids, and then in 2016. Kind of the reason we brought you on today is that's when things started to happen a little bit physically with your health. And it took some time to get to the liver transplant we'll talk about here, but there's some abdominal pain which would lead to a CT scan revealing a fatty liver, which could eventually lead to fatty liver disease. I want you to talk about that because when I did the little Google search, where does fatty liver come from? It right automatically said usually people who consume alcohol too much or might even border on being alcoholic. That wasn't your case.
It was not the case. I mean, I will say I was a drinker, a social drinker, right? But it was more heredity. I've been obese my whole life. And that is a huge factor in a fatty liver. I actually had gastric bypass in 2009 because of it. So that helped a little bit. But when I went in 2016, I think back to it and I think about it really was kind of just a mention like, hey, did you know that you have sort of a fatty liver? And I said, no, what does that mean? She said, well, I mean, you should, keep the weight off and you should, just try to eat healthy. And, it's probably nothing, but a lot of people that are overweight have a fatty liver. Probably most people don't even know they have a fatty liver, right? And so I said, okay. And then nothing really ever came of it. My primary care didn't think it was a big deal. Just wasn't surprised, I guess, because I think a lot of people do have fatty livers. But I started down this path of, in 2017, I had been feeling so tired and run down for weeks and weeks, and ended up going to a conference in Las Vegas, and I just got sicker and sicker, and I just kept saying, oh my gosh, I feel like I might just pass out, right? I was so weak and tired. I remember like we were going to walk across the street to a McDonald's to get a Big McMuffin or something, and it was a Las Vegas street, right? And I just said, I've got 40 seconds to get across the street. I didn't think I was going to make it because I was walking so slow because I just was so run down. And then eventually my friend that was there with me was like, I think maybe we just need to get you checked out. And I was like, I'm fine, right? And then she took me to this Las Vegas hospital, which is a whole nother show.
Interesting.
Yeah. And I ended up being in the hospital for 2 days. I was super low on hemoglobin to the point where I needed transfusions.
Wow.
And they were not sure why, because all my other numbers were okay. My liver numbers were never really very bad, to be honest. Even at the end, they were not horrific. So they did, an endoscopy, and they did a colonoscopy to make sure that I wasn't bleeding somewhere, because they couldn't figure out why my hemoglobin was so low. And I had, I think, 3 transfusions, and then they pumped iron into my blood, or into my veins, just to try to get, all of that red blood cell count up. And they said, oh, well, we think, at the juncture of where your gastric bypass was, there's maybe a little thinning, and maybe it was a slow leak. And that's where it was, but they didn't see any blood. So, they put a bunch of blood in me. I flew home, and, slowly I recovered. But my hemoglobin, from that point on, I think 2016, 2017, I never had normal hemoglobin numbers. And it happened 2 more times where I got so run down that I ended up going into the hospital to have transfusions. And they, again, thought, oh, it's maybe this ulcer. It wasn't an official ulcer, but they thought maybe it was just a slow leak.
Okay.
Never looked at my liver. But my liver counts were never very high.
Nothing to say that we got to get you into the hospital and we got to do some drastic ways your lifestyle, how you're eating, how you're treating your body. So then we're going to fast forward, because you did fill in some blanks there then in early 2021. And this is where it got fascinating for me when you typed all that information up and sent it. So during the COVID pandemic, you decide to have some elective eye surgery. And I put in my notes, I'm thinking, okay, what kind of eye surgery that I know of? Did you have LASIK? Did you have a detached retina? Did you have glaucoma? You didn't. You had another kind.
I didn't. So I had a muscle in my left eye that was drooping to the point where it was interfering with my vision. And so when I went to the eye doctor, I asked about it, and he said, well, you should maybe go see a specialist, right? So I went to see a specialist. He said, yeah, we can fix that. And what we'll do is we'll cut your open right under the eyebrow, and then we'll, cut the muscle and shorten it, and then it should bring it back up, right?
So it's during this elective surgery that there's some excessive bleeding, more than usual, and your eye doctor has to stop the procedure. And I turned into a 10-year-old little kid when you were telling me that story, and I'm like, okay, what happened next? And what happened next? So you're gonna just guide us through, and then we're gonna pull the plug on segment 1 here and go to segment 2. But I want you to kind of talk us just quickly through that. So you go in for this elective surgery.
Yeah, and I'm out, right? They put you under. It's not like a deep anesthesia, but they do put you under, because it wasn't like a major surgery of all things. But, and I remember I hear talking, and I feel like I'm being shaken a little bit, like they were trying to wake me up. And then I feel like something warm running down my face. And the doctor said, Deanne, can you hear me? And I said, yeah. And he said, you are bleeding profusely, and I need to stop the surgery because I'm risking blindness. He said, this is not normal. And I said, okay.
There's a lot of things that would point to me giving the okay to stop. Number 1, you're waking me up in the middle of this. Number 2, I'm feeling warm liquid coming down my eye. And then number 3 is I need to stop. And it's what happens next is he made some recommendations after that.
Yeah.
So he sewed you up. First of all, they sewed you back up.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Sewed me up and came in to talk to me. And he said, I'm going to refer you to a hematologist. I think they need to look at why you're bleeding so profusely. He said, you're not on blood thinners, right? I said, no, I'm not on blood thinners. Never have been. And he said, okay. Well, I think we need to get to the bottom of this, because no one's ever bled like this before.
And you're probably not thinking, do I get my picture and a T-shirt and my picture up on the wall? That's where we're gonna kind of get into what then you started to think about a little bit, and then anybody who has these kind of circumstances happen to them, they can look back on this episode and say, hey, you gotta listen to this Dee Dee Crowley where she talked about the same thing you had, this eye surgery, and you're bleeding and you're going through the same thing, but here are her couple of things that she used to get through that. or if somebody has that happen, here's what's going to happen after that. You're going to kind of talk us through a little bit of that in
Sure.
segment 2. But anyway, our sponsor, Buck and Honeys, has been with the Survive and Thrive 8791 podcast since the very beginning, with 4 locations in the Madison area. One is always near. People ask why Buck and Honey's owner, Tom Anderson, places a high priority on the mental health of his employees. He's a mental health professional available for them should they need support. I don't know how many businesses do that above and beyond their employee assistance program, but they do. So in late spring, early 2022, your health would take a downward trajectory. In segment 2, you are going to talk us through what it was like to struggle with your health and not know what's going on, and your doctors really not know either, and what it was like for Dee Dee Crowley to go through all of that. So please stay tuned. Don't change that dial, because you don't want to miss segment 2 of Survive and Thrive 8791. We will be back.
If you, a loved one, or someone you know is experiencing a physical, mental, or emotional crisis, there is help and resources out there. Contact NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness Helpline, at 1-800-950-6264. This is a free service providing information, resource referrals, and support to people living with a mental illness, their family, providers, and the public. United Way 211 is available 24/7, 365, and offers free confidential assistance. They connect people with the local programs and services that can help. Dial 211. Emergency Crisis Services, dial 911. The Suicide Prevention Lifeline, dial 988. To connect via web, chat, visit suicidepreventionlifeline.org. Along with those numbers, there is help. You just need to say 3 words. I need help. Now, back to the show.
We are back. Welcome back to segment 2 of Survive and Thrive 8791. I'm your host, Coach Tim DeCora. The podcast is where I feature guests who share their story in hopes of helping others who may be struggling with what life throws at them. In the late summer, early fall of 2021, Dee Dee Crowley had a biopsy of the liver, and it determined it was scarred to an advanced degree. And concerning, not very concerning. What were your thoughts when you heard this? You did send me that you maybe had been a little scared, confused, but you just kind of changed that a little bit after we talked about it. You didn't think it was very concerning.
Yeah, well, I started to think it was concerning at that point. I never got the feeling before that it was super urgent, right? Until, that the whole thing with the eye doctor, and then the hematologist said, I think there's something wrong with your liver. It took a while to figure that out. And then I saw a GI doctor, and they did a biopsy. And I remember I was terrified. And I remember them rolling me into the biopsy, and I was all alone, right? And I was crying. Like I was trying not to cry, but it's so scary. I was so scared because I never thought, that something like this would happen to me. So,
well, since I've known you over the last probably 5-6 years, I've known you as this, just, you've got a presence to you. You walk in, you're very confident. Personality is always good. You speak very well when I've talked with you, and to know that you would be a little scared, confused by yourself, cry. I don't see you as a crier.
yeah. Oh, I can cry with the best of
You
them.
can cry, and that's going to be part of what we talk about later on here. So you're confused. How did you cope with some of that initial fear and confusion? Did you know how to do that? Nobody really knows how to, but what did you do?
I really didn't. And I don't think I asked enough questions, right? So they said, you need to try not to eat fat. You need to make sure you're not drinking alcohol, which I had stopped already when they said, the liver does not like alcohol, period, if you have a healthy liver. So I obviously had stopped prior to that. You need to, keep the weight off if you can, eat a healthy diet, try to get out and exercise. And so it was kind of left at that. And I was like, okay, I can do this, right? So I did that, even though I was scared. And at one point, somebody had said when I think it was later on in the summer when I was in the ER, and a doctor had said, Did they ever mention that someday, like I'm not talking anytime soon, but someday you may want to think about a transplant for your liver? I said, no, no one's ever mentioned this. So that'll come into play later.
Okay.
But so I just kind of went through that holiday season and the spring of 2022, and I wasn't feeling great. It just became the norm. I just felt run down. I knew that something wasn't right. We knew something wasn't right.
Yeah. So you said that the next year saw some ups and downs,
Yeah.
but probably more downs. You're getting weaker, tired, but you're still able to
Yeah.
see your son graduate from 8th grade.
Yeah.
Your daughter was finishing her junior
Junior year.
her junior year. She's getting her, she's got her license and she's doing all those you're going through those milestones and you're grinding through it.
Yeah.
Probably some of that Manitowoc toughness
Yeah.
coming through that blue collar Manitowoc. And you're going downhill and you're going,
Yeah.
it's a slow decline. So you made it through the summer.
Well, no, I had two
Let's back
hospital
up, yes.
stays during the summer, two of them. One when I needed transfusions again. And at this point, my GI doctor we just weren't meshing, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think she was going down a different path, and I didn't feel like there was a sense of urgency, right? And as I got sicker and sicker, so I was in June, and then I was in at the end of July. And I felt terrible. And when my blood counts would come back, my primary care they would take blood counts every month. And he would put the orders in, and then he'd be like, these are really low. And so we tried to get with, my GI doctor, and it wasn't a meshed situation. I didn't feel like it was a priority. I don't think I pushed hard enough. And then I'd say early September, I was filming something over at Epic Systems for a leadership conference for the job I had at the time. And we were walking, and I was like, oh my God, this is so much walking, because I was so weak. And then,
it is a huge campus.
it is a big campus. And then when you have no blood and you're sick, and at that point, there was a new GI doctor that was doing the hospital rounds.
Okay.
And I talked to her quite a bit, and I told her my story, and I, expressed my concern. I asked her if she was taking new patients, and she said, I am. And I said, I would like very much if you could help me. And she was fantastic. And she made it a priority. So I was in probably 4 days that day in the hospital, transfusions, and then I was okay. All right, you can go home now, right? And then in October, I had a very scary situation with my daughter. There was a bunch of people from work coming into town for a leadership conference, and I was going to be staying where everybody else was staying because it was like a 40-minute drive from our house, and it was a full 2 or 3 days. And, everybody went to school, came home from work. I never woke up. Like Aaron went to work. I never woke up. I woke up and I went downstairs and I'm like, what the heck? And then Kenzie walks in the door and she says, it was like 3:45. And I said, Kenzie, did you stay out on a school night till 3:45? And she said, Mom, I just got home from school. And I was so confused and so disoriented. And Aaron came and he said, Dee Dee, we need to go to the ER. I said, I'm fine. And then I tried to walk and I said, I think we should go to the ER. And we just piled in the car. No purse, no nothing, just drove to the ER. And I had severe ammonia poisoning. So it affects your brain because my liver was not working. This was October.
And your liver's supposed to be maybe filtering some of that.
Yes, and
Okay.
it was not filtering any of it. And at that point, they told me that my MELD score, which is median end-stage liver disease score, it's anywhere from, I think most people are 5 or 6 to 40. And 40 is you're dead, right? Your liver is not working, and you don't survive that. And I was at a 35. And this was October 10th or 11th, somewhere like just the, early, mid-October, really. And that's when I said to my new GI doctor, I said, do you think it's time I was referred to the UW transplant program? And she said, yes, I do think it's time. And she said, this is how it works. It usually takes a few weeks or a few months to get in to see somebody. And then it's, you go through some testing and they often will, put you on a list. It could be 6 months to a year. This was mid-October of 2022. So they called the next week and they said, we need you to come in November 8th. You need to bring 2 support people that will be here for 8 hours. They put you through all kinds of a social worker. They have a hepatologist. They have surgeons. You go through like a whole thing, and people have to take notes. Yeah, it's a whole team. 8 hours. And the doctor came in and he said, I'm just going to show you something here. And he said, this is your MELD score, and this is your projected life expectancy in 6 months. And it was less than 50%. And at that point I was like, oh, like I had no idea it was that bad. It just went so fast.
And who's got that timetable? Everybody's probably got a different timetable, and yours just happened to be going. So we go through that October 2022. You asked to be on the transplant program, and then we fast forward to December 2nd, 2022.
Yeah. So I had to go through a bunch of tests to get on the list.
Okay.
And I was very sick, and there was another ambulance run with me because I had ammonia poisoning again, and my belly was infected with all the fluid. And that was before Thanksgiving. And then I was in the hospital for like 12 days, and they couldn't finish the final test to get me on the transplant list, which was a double heart cath because I was fighting an infection. So finally, the day after Thanksgiving, they were able to get me that test. And I think that was like the 28th. And I got put on the list. And then they sent me home the following week, Wednesday. And I remember my sister being really upset, saying, I don't think I can keep her alive. I don't know how to take care of her. And they said she needs to go home. It's not safe to be in a hospital. She's very ill. And if you need to bring her back, call an ambulance, right?
That makes sense that, people are coming in sick and you don't want to get sick. So it's probably best.
So they sent me home on a Wednesday, and by that Friday morning, she wasn't able to really wake me up. I wasn't coherent. I don't remember any of it. And she called a neighbor and a couple of friends over that, one of the neighbors is a ER nurse at the UW. And she said, you need to call transport right now. They called an ambulance. I don't remember any of it. And I asked her, was I in the ER? She said, you were in the ER for like 5 hours. And then I remember waking up in the room, and there was a bunch of people. And this was, 2 days before my transplant. There was a bunch of people in the room, and they were all like tenured doctors with the UW program.
The bigwigs.
Yeah, they were the bigwigs. And there was one woman who was a hospitalist, and they were talking to me, and I just said, am I going to live to see a liver transplant? And nobody said anything. And I was like, I looked at my sister, and she started to cry. And the woman finally spoke up, the hospitalist, and she said, Deanne, you have a really valid concern. We're worried about you. We have you stable right now, but you need a liver very soon. And that night, I got a call that I was receiving a liver.
And did you get that call? Were you in the hospital?
I was in the hospital.
You were, okay. So you weren't at home, you were in the hospital. So you have the liver transplant. Just real quick, how long does that take if everything went well? And I'm guessing it went well.
It went well.
How long are you in there?
Initially, they said it was going to be 12 to 14 hours, and it ended up being 6.
Did they put your picture on the wall, and you get a T-shirt, liver transplant, 6 hours?
Yeah.
I don't want to joke around about that.
No, he said it came out pretty easy, and I think they deal with all different kinds of things. The liver is so complicated. There's so many.
It does a lot of work.
Yeah, it does a lot of work, and there's main arteries, all the everything. It's just I think they gave me 14 blood transfusions during it because it's just, there's so much that goes through the liver. People don't even realize it.
So so then we're going to start to talk about the recovery process, and then we're going to get to the 5 things. But let's talk about the recovery and what was that like the next day, week, and month.
Yeah.
Just put it into perspective for the listeners.
When I first woke up, they keep you under for a day or two just to make sure everything is, working like it should. And then when they bring you out of it, I just felt like I was in this weird world. Like I was not clear. I was like, where am I? Right? I thought for some reason I was in like Wanakee in a hospital.
Is this heaven?
It was so weird. And I kept saying, I'm so thirsty. Could someone give me something to drink? Because, I had a tube down my throat for a day and stuff. And it it was bizarre. I call it like a bizarro world.
Okay.
Yeah. I just,
That's the Seinfeld reference.
yeah. Yeah. So it just, the first week was horrible. I was so confused. I remember a speech therapist came in and she was trying to tell me to, do my stuff on a clock. Like, what's it? I said, well, that's 2:00. And she's like, that's not 2:00. I said, that's 2:00. Like, you couldn't tell me it was wrong. It just took a long time. It was a fog. And I remember watching, because it was Christmas time almost, right? All the shows
yeah.
on TV. And I was just like, it was such a weird feeling.
Is that when you started asking questions, was that normal after the fact? Now, is that normal that liver or transplant patients go through that bizarro or la la land? Is that?
It is. Yeah,
Okay.
it
Is
is.
there a name for that?
No, they just call it a fog, really.
Okay.
But it is, it's so traumatic to your body because the liver does so much that it's traumatic. Everything just takes a while to kind of snap back, right? And it didn't take me that long, but it was a really weird couple of weeks. And it was horrible. It was painful, and then I couldn't sleep. I couldn't sleep. So it was rough.
The body's reacting to the new sheriff in town and trying to acclimate, and all right, we got a new guy in town. Let's introduce him to the body, and it's going to take a little bit of time for the liver to get to know everybody else, and then eventually you start coming out of that fog. Were you able to celebrate? Because you said that, so that was December 2nd. What was it like to ring in Christmas and the New Year? Were you out of the fog by then?
I was somewhat out of the fog, but I don't think I was normal until mid-January mentally. It's just, I was so frail. I was down to 135 pounds at one point.
Playing weight.
Yeah, it was really, I've never been a thin person, and I couldn't eat, and both my sisters were so worried about me, but it was just hard to, I had to walk with a walker, and I had to have a hospital bed on the main floor because our bedroom was up on the second floor. And it was a super slow recovery, and it was a rough.
You're glad you did it, but
Of
you're
course.
also here to tell people that it's going to be slow. And what would you say to somebody right now if they're going to go through a liver transplant? What would you tell them right now about here's what it's like, here's what's going to happen in that first month? What would you say to them?
I would say just take it hour by hour. Take your meds, right? If they offer you stuff for pain, take them. Don't be a martyr because it hurts. They did a lot of work inside of you. Sleep whenever you can. Don't feel bad about dozing off if you have company. It's just take it hour by hour.
And you just alluded to it being about mid-January before the, so to speak, fog started to lift a little bit. All right, we're going to get into, so the listeners, this is where I tell them to grab a pen or pencil, and I'm sure they've probably already written a bunch of stuff down if they're listening because, hey, I got this neighbor or I got a cousin or sibling or a relative or coworker that is going through the same thing, transplant program somewhere. Here are some suggestions by Dee Dee to help you get through the aftermath. And everybody comes on with 5 suggestions on what worked for them. If only 2 work, at least it's a start. But these are the 5 things that Dee Dee said that helped her. And I'm going to toss these in like softballs, and then you're going to go and whack them out. So here's what you shared with me, and now we're going to share with the Survive and Thrive 8791 crew. The first one was never hesitate to ask questions, over and over.
Right.
Go ahead and hit that.
I don't think I asked enough questions, and I didn't know how sick I was because, I'm too nice, maybe. I'm kind of a nice, pleasant person, and I feel like I should have asked more direct questions. I did eventually, but I should have asked more up front, and I maybe could have headed off some of this quick, all of a sudden downfall of my liver if I had pushed a little harder or asked more questions. I don't think I ever really truly thought I was going to have a transplant within a few months. I never thought it was that bad. I don't think I asked enough questions. And my sister showed up, and she started pushing me to ask questions, and then she would be my advocate. But you really need to ask every single question, and don't feel bad about asking it 5 times, right? Sometimes my mind wasn't always right because I did have some fog going on already because my liver wasn't cleansing everything out of my bloodstream. So
I think you should maybe put together a little blurb, post it somewhere about some of these things, because I think you can get some traction for this, because you are a person that speaks very clearly, very well. You're well spoken. Your thoughts are all there. I think if you wrote something and posted it someplace, it would be of value to something, just like this podcast is going to be of value to somebody else. I think you could kind of continue that advocacy for people that have to go through it, because you wouldn't want somebody to go through exactly what you wanted or you went through. You would have liked it to be a slightly better. And if that helps somebody else to speed up the process, great. We're going to skip to number 3 then, which is, because you talked about your sister. You said be an advocate for yourself, which we're asked those questions, and have an advocate for you at your side. And that was your sister. Which sister was that?
well, it was both of them, but mainly my sister Debbie, who's retired. She basically moved here the first few months. She would be there. She was there in September and October when I was in the hospital. And then she kind of lived with us between mid-November and the end of the year. And she came to the hospital all day with me. And she would talk to all the doctors. She would take notes. And again, there were days I don't remember pieces of it. There are days I don't remember whole days, but she would take, and I'm at that point, I was enough of an advocate for myself, but my mind wasn't always there because I was so sick. So have somebody with you, have them ask the questions, do the research. And she had my back for sure.
Big shout out to your siblings in general, because they're from far and near. They're probably tossing you all kinds of support with prayers and whatnot, but big shout out to Sister Debbie.
Yeah, Sister Debbie. And Dawn came to stay with me after the holidays too, while Debbie went on a planned trip. So, I mean, both my sisters were here a lot and helped me a ton, but Debbie was definitely the medical advocate for 3 months almost for me.
All right, you're gonna hit on the caring bridge here, but I'm gonna go with number 2. Then we're going backwards here. Lean on your friends, family, community. You don't need to do this alone. So you kind of already talked about that a little bit. And then you had this caring bridge that got set up for information to go out about Dee Dee Crowley to her friends and whatnot. And you had a large number of people that were in your corner. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so a lot of people were concerned about me, obviously. I know a lot of people. I do have quite a few friends. And the easiest way to communicate, because I was not able to keep up anymore, and I was just so sick, was to do this Caring Bridge page. And we had over 1,000 followers, which was incredible. I couldn't believe it. And the comments, every time there would be a post, there'd be so many, hundreds of comments. And there were so many people praying for me. Like, people had prayer circles, in their communities. And I had so much support. And that was key, right? I mean, it was unbelievable.
Well, that's a community of Wanakee tends to come out for people in need. And then you probably had some of the basketball people, and then Jack's friends and Aaron's friends and all of these. And then you probably had complete strangers come in to just wish you well, or you're in our thoughts and prayers, or we're praying for you. We're going to circle back to that in a little bit. You take a look at number 4, you take a look at life, and then you decide and what's truly important after this whole journey. You want to talk about some things that are really important?
Yeah.
That maybe weren't so much before?
Yeah. I mean, I'll say this, at the end of the day, when, I'm going to go back to work, and you stand up and you're looking at your life, and everybody gets to go back to their life, and they were so wonderful during it, but you're standing there and you're looking out, and like, your life is forever changed. My life will never be the same. And it is so scary. And so, like, how am I going to do this? Right. You just have to take it day by day, and you,
put my buddy
one
says,
foot in
put
front of the
one
other,
foot in front of the other.
100%. But, I'm dependent on so many pills to keep me alive now. And, I had to change a lot of stuff I ate, and just it probably was a year recovery before I felt like myself. And now I feel like better than I have in a decade. But, just take your time to heal, and then look at your life, like stuff that, drama that happens. If drama happens with my kids or drama happens with friends, I'm always like, that's really silly, because does it really matter, right? So you really do need to focus on the relationships that you have and trying to purge the drama and the negativity out of it and just focus on really is what, important to you and your family. And that is my family and getting my family through life and getting my kids out the door, right? Like to be contributing humans to society.
And by the way, you've done a great job with those two.
Thank you.
The last part, I think this is important no matter what you are, no matter who you are. Cry and yell when you need to. Don't hold it in. And I feel so much better after a good cry. Talk about that.
Yeah, I think if you keep it in, I think you tend to it builds up, and then I think you tend to go down a negative path. I think it's a much more positive thing to just say, hey, I'm really ticked that this happened to me. This is not fair. Why did this happen to me? Cry. You can say whatever you want to say, and then you pick up the pieces and you move on, right? You get it out, because I think when you go through something like this, if you kept that all inside, I just don't know how you could survive it mentally, because it was a road that I would not wish upon anybody. It was tough.
I know when I talk about the crying, and I've used this here and there where sometimes I'm not real articulate with my words, and you ask me how I feel. I might not know how to articulate that or say it, but a great way to get some pain and anger and suffering, cry. Mm-hmm. Cry. And
or yell.
Everybody yell, swear, cuss, whatever.
Yeah.
I'm sometimes good at that.
Punch something, as long as it's not a person, right?
Man, what an episode. Because of what you shared today, this is going to help someone having to make decisions about their health, whether it's transplant or anything else, whatever's caused them. Ask questions over and over. Mm-hmm. I think you've mentioned that. Your story will help anyone who might find themselves as a transplant patient. Your strength to share publicly, and we talked about this before. Is this you've been keeping this in, or you've been sharing it? Sounds like you've been sharing it. Mm-hmm. Your strength to share publicly with the Survive and Thrive 8791 crew is an inspiration. I really mean that. And now your story not only helped me to understand what you went through, it's going to help somebody. It's going to help others. And people that are listening to this may know somebody that is going to be traveling the same path in the future. And they can say, hey, I want you to listen to this episode 36. Dee Dee Crowley on the Survive and Thrive 8791 is going to talk you through what's going to happen next. And you can use her message. And I think it's a really, really good one. Call to action. Dee Dee Crowley just shared an experience that our listeners can learn from. These 5 things can help you or someone you know survive and thrive, just like Dee Dee did as a transplant patient. These are Dee Dee's 5 suggestions. Here's what she shared with us. Never hesitate to ask questions over and over. Number 2, lean on your friends, family, community. You don't need to do this alone. Number 3, be an advocate for yourself and have an advocate there by your side. Number 4, take a look at life and what is truly important. And number 5, cry and yell when you need to. Don't hold it in. As we close another great episode of Survive and Thrive 8791, are there any final thoughts, Dee Dee?
Yeah, I mean, I just want to thank everybody that, supported me. I can't tell you how many cards. I think in December, every day people were dropping things off. There were meals organized. There were prayer circles. There was just so many people concerned about me and supported me and my family. And I don't know how we would have done it. So I'm forever grateful for that. I don't know what I ever did to deserve that, but I'm so grateful for it. And the one thing I want to say is please consider being an organ donor.
Yes, you heard me. Yes, be considered to be an organ donor. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter what it is, because it's going to save a life, prolong a life. And in your case, you are an advocate for that, because you're here today, almost 2 years now.
Yeah, it's 2 years and 2 years and a month. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm happy that our paths have crossed and have always had the utmost appreciation for you and your support, and then being able to say yes to come on to the show. I'm in the business now of trying to help as many people as I can, and that's why I have the podcast and bring on people that have gone through and survived and thrived something like you have. So I'm very thankful that you came on. On our next episode, we will have another amazing guest in the Buck and Honey's remote studios who will share how they survived and thrived. If you have a story to share or you know someone who does, please reach out to me at tdecora@gmail.com. Until next time, hang in there with whatever you happen to be going through, and with hard work, dedication, and determination, you can survive and thrive. Until next time, take care.